Hello YouTube model community, this is Rusty Rotor. As promised, this is the last update on the commission build, the Protouring 71 Cutlass 442. I'm waiting on one thing through the mail, which is the decal for the grill, and then final assembly. So I thought I'd get a video in here real quick, show you everything up to this point, kind of go over everything as quickly as possible, and kind of some tweaks and maneuverabilities that I gotta go through here to put it all together. I have already had it put together once. I know it'll go together. The biggest downfall was our attempts to keep the engine under the hood just miserably failed. It's not to say that we couldn't get another hood and remanufacture this scoop by like raising these vents up and keeping the center raised up just a little bit, painting to match, and then putting it back on there, and it would have been fine. But we were trying to do it without any modifications to the hood because it does have a very cool hood. But Jay has agreed that he will. I'll probably take it to a couple shows too on my own, but he's going to keep the hood displayed next to it. Too much detail to have it covered up. And when I say too much detail, holy crap. I went way and above what we were going to do, but it was just, once we added the Pro Mod chassis to it, it was just too hard not to resist adding all this detail. So we'll go down the list real quick. We plumbed the rack and pinion and the power steering gearbox. It is all plumbed. We plumbed all the brake lines completely up to the master cylinder, which is, it's a reservoir. There's a 3-cylinder reservoir. One is for the clutch or the hydraulic brakes. One is for the hydraulic transmission, the shifter, and then one is for the solenoid, whatever, in the transmission for the shifter. Can't think of the name of it. The fuel lines are all plumbed, including from the fuel tank through a fuel filter, into a fuel pump, up through the fuel tubes, up into a fuel block that I'll show you here in a minute, and then up to the carbs. We did use Protec linkage. The linkage arms, I guess, would be the best thing to say. And then I scratch built the linkage rod and the throttle cable. Scratch built the return spring. We did wire the electric fan. It is got a Morgan's Automotive detail distributor and wires and boots. We used a super coil. Also, it's wired. We wired the alternator. The starter is wired. We got the wiring harness coming from the front that would have been like the headlights and stuff like that. That's wired, and we attached everything to the roll cage in the front. We had to remote locate the oil filter due to a header issue, and that's why we're basically at this point anyways, is because could never get any set of headers to fit in here right. I ended up actually having to clip the bars of the roll cage and sliding the headers up in first, and then putting the roll cage back together, and then applying the headers once the engine was down in the cradle. I've seen that done on real cars, just the way they're manufactured. Everything's so tight. It's the only way they could get headers in. You know, not a big deal. And actually, you know, it's hard to see, but if you look close, you can see it. We removed the wheel wells, remember, originally. That lets all this detail be seen either by underneath or through the opening of the hood. We used the Detail Masters steel braided lines pretty much for everything we could, other than the fuel lines. I was going to the fuel lines, but it was so intricate I needed to put nice bends and everything, and the steel braided line just didn't want to cooperate, so we switched gears to something else. Does have both upper and lower radiator hoses. Let's see. We did use a catch can for the antifreeze. It's got a bypass line that goes straight down to the ground. The other one's coming up out of the pressure release cap. It does have like a street style radiator in it. It's a CNR racing performance radiator, but with that old school look. That's what we're going with. We did plumb the transmission lines. We used red anodized fittings pretty much on everything. A little blue just to add some detail. And, you know, to date in my 51 years of building models, this is the most detailed model I have ever built. Ever. I mean, I've come close, but not like this. I don't know what it is. It's not a lack of trying to do it, I guess. It's just a aha moment, you know. The detail was there, begging to be brought out in it, I guess. And, you know, I know Jay's going to treasure this, and, you know, he's going to take it to some shows. And, of course, I mean, for you guys that don't like that, I do get all the build credit. So, you know, and it's got my custom tag on the back of it. So, and anybody watching this channel and Instagram knows that I'm the one that built this. So I'm not really worried about people not knowing who built the model. That's not even an issue. We did add appropriate decals to pretty much everything. Most of those decals are by Slicks, SLIXX. If you're curious about them and their selection, we'll have their link up here. You can go check them out, or the website up here. I'll try to add links in at the bottom of the video to most of these companies. It's really hard to do with sending videos out to be edited, getting them back, uploading them back, and adding all that stuff in. It's really hard to go through and do all that. It's just really time consuming. So I apologize if sometimes you can't find links down below. My niece does a great job of, you know, putting their websites up on the screen here for you. And that's, you know, you just type that in and it takes you right there. And most everybody's familiar with them anyways. But anyways, the Morgan's Automotive Detail distributor is yellow also, like the Super Coil. So that was a nice little touch of yellow there. There's a little touch of yellow in the interior. Every color I used, we may have done 4 or 5 colors here. Maybe 6. Let's see, we used blacks, we used whites, we used reds, we used metals, all different shades of metals. We used yellow, we used green. Yeah, so we got 6, and we used blue, so 7 colors. It's above what normally I do, but each of those colors, there's a little touch of it throughout the car, so it balances it out. We do have aluminum pulleys. Jay sent those to us, so thank you to Jay. The tachometer is from Jay. It's a beautiful tack. I don't know who makes it. I added the decal. The decals he sent with it, they were too small, and they just didn't look right. So I went through my stash of decals, and I found a nice Moroso tachometer gauge, and it fit perfect. We used UV resin and cured it, and it crystal clear for the face of it. Just turned out beautiful. We wired it. All the switches on top of the roll cage are wired. And of course, the switches that are on the dash and the console, the wires would be hidden, so you wouldn't see them anyways. What else did we wire on this thing? I think that was it. We did run our vacuum lines. We put a vacuum stem down into the intake and ran a vacuum line to each carburetor, and then from there back to it would just disappear into the car. It would go for whatever up underneath the dash vacuum is needed, probably for the heater controls and stuff like that. This being Pro Touring, it's still probably, it's not a daily driver, but it's you know, you might get out on a nice clean, nice dry, cold day, and you'd want a little heat. So it's running full heat. We just don't run. We didn't run the heater hoses. He's probably got maybe a different source of heat in the car. I don't know. We didn't run the heater hoses. We could have. It's just parts of it you wouldn't be able to see. I mean, you talking about 15 shoehorns and 20 guys to put all this down in here? No, that's just me. I'm all that. Just super tight fit. And I didn't want to keep covering up detail over top of detail over detail. It's kind of just right the way it is. Let's see, what else do we do? Oh, we do have the oil catch can. It is plumbed to the top of the valve cover and down to the oil pan. You know, because he does take it down to the drag strip on the weekends, and you got to meet all the requirements. The 5-point harnesses, these are 4-point harnesses, I'm sorry, were gifted by Jay. They're red and yellow. They're the photo etch kind, which it's the first time me ever using them, and I absolutely love them. I like the way they contour, they bend, they manipulate, they go together very easily. It's once you kind of figure out the instructions, it's almost, you got to be a rocket scientist for that. But between looking back and forth from the diagram and that and figuring out, once I got that, it took about 10-15 minutes. It was a cakewalk installing them. And I'll be looking to like maybe stock up on those because, I mean, as much as I like building my own from scratch, that was a nice change. And they do have nice look because the stitching's in there. You know, the buckles are all black, and they give you the contact points for roll cages and for the connection points. So it was nice. We did use GM OEM seat belts for the rear seat. We could have done a harness style there too, drop them down off the top of the roll cage down. But I doubt it if they're going to be going 0 to 220 miles an hour with 4 people in the car. You never know. But yeah, we did make some modifications. Kind of getting off base here, but we had to make some modifications to the roll cage. Nothing major, but it all worked out in the end. Once it's in there, all the wonkiness of it just kind of pulled out, leveled out a little bit. It's not the best. It's like the second roll cage I've ever scratch built, and this one was scratch built using styrene tube and an existing roll cage. If you remember, we split it in the middle this way, and we split it in the middle this way, and then I added tubes to put back what it is lacking, and we had to get that tapered shape for the Cutlass. And then we took the shifter off the base and mounted it to the console, which was a great look. I really like that. We got all of our switches in there. We used the Kits decals on the console, the door panels, the dashboard. All that turned out really good. Not perfect, but it looks really nice, and everything plays the part. Yesterday, after assembling it, I thought I had it all done. I was having some fitment issues, and I was looking around and realized my roll cage was back a 1/4 inch. It wasn't fitting in there right. So I was like, well, I got to take this thing back apart, and hopefully I can do it without breaking it. And knock on some wood, I did. And I realized what it was. I didn't have my seats too far enough forward to allow the roll bar to be in the position I needed it to be in. So that was, you know, I just snapped the seats loose, lifted it up, re-glued the seats down where they needed to be, fixed the harnesses a little bit, tweaked the roll cage, glued it down in place. A couple of spots that got a little too much glue, but it was just too late. But it's not horrible. It's just not, it wasn't as nice as it was, but it's doable. And the roll cage, like I said, mellowed out. Because that's where I built it to be at. You know what I'm saying? I designed it to fit in that certain location, and there it fit really good. So we're happier. We were able to put the sun visors, the dome light I still got to put in. We got the rear view mirror in. I'll show you that now. All this, the roll bar clears all that, so that it's nice to have that detail in there. Keep that stock look. The glass went in really nice. I still got to do a final wax on it. We've got our back bumper in. And I think I'm going to put a a hearse decal right up here where my little flub is. That'll cover that up on the exterior. I got one other little spot I got to take care of down here where a little bit of glue got out on the body from the bumper, but should be able to take care of that with no problem. I mean, just, you know, you'll be able to see this through the grill, the CNR. You know, the guys just put tons of money into this car and trying to keep it as original as possible. That was our theme. That's how we were working with. So without further ado, we're just going to take the camera off here, and I'll show you the two little air cleaners. I put them in place. Like I said, it's not married together, but you guys, there'll be a final video showing it all together, and it'll just be a short, quick, simple little video. And I know the air cleaners ain't aligned properly, but they're sitting on there the way they need to be. The only thing we have left is to adjust the exhaust underneath, which I hand bent, and it has 3D mufflers, is the exhaust tips, which I had them on there and realized they stuck out way too far, so I had to cut back the exhaust pipes, and then I got to reattach the tips, and that will be done. Maybe a little touch-up paint, so you get an idea with the little round air cleaners. You guys can just see, and I'll zoom in a little bit here. You can see the amount of detail that is in this thing. I mean, there's stuff going everywhere. You know, there's our MSD box over here on the side. It's on the outside of the cage, but you can still see it with it from underneath and up top. Radiator hoses, lower radiator hose down there. There's our transmission lines. There's our catch can for the antifreeze. Our remote oil filter. And let me remove this so I don't knock it off. And we'll follow that remote oil filter down. And you can see right there, those are the lines to the remote oil filter. That's the catch can line coming up from the oil, or going down to the oil pan. There's our catch can. Lines coming out. Goes over to the top of the valve cover. Our breathers. There's a vacuum line stem I was talking about that sits in the intake and then goes to each carb. And then the other line goes down and back towards the firewall. The carburetors plumbed, double pumpers each one. Our linkage arm coming out, return spring going down. There's that Protec throttle linkage on both carbs. Everything was hand bent. I need to straighten them up a little bit, especially over right in here. I got a little wonkied. We even added a washer fluid tank. Does have wiper blades that work, so you're catching bugs at 200 miles an hour. Need some wiper juice. There's our reservoirs. There's our super coil all hooked in. We got our little clamps around the roll cage. This is our electric fan wires. Over here we have the cables or wiring harness going up to the front, which would be for your headlights, marker lights, turn signals, so on and so forth. Alternators wired red, white, and blue, just to give a little Americana to it, and a ground wire. Those go up and around and into the ignition box. Everything's controlled by the MSD ignition box. Look down in here, we can see the aluminum pulleys and the belts. Turn it around so you get a better angle here. You can look down and see the dash. There's that Moroso tack. Let's back out a little bit. Now it's going in. See if we can get it to focus. Get that glare. You can see all the switches and lights. They're wired. There we go. There's a better look at the tack. Focus. There we go. You can even read it saying Moroso. That's the kit steering wheel. It has the Oldsmobile emblem in the center. We did UV glue over top of that to represent a shiny lens on it. all the switches down on the dash. There's switches down there on the console. Sorry for the jumping around, guys. There's the tack. Gauges. There they are down there on the console. It's just not going to focus. If I can, a little bit. That's the go-go button down there too. It does have nitrous, but it's in the trunk. You don't see it. Those harnesses I was talking about, it's got the stitching in them. Super nice. Now we'll turn her over. There we go. Starting with the hand bend exhaust, you can see where one's a little longer. I still got to cut the bottom one down here. I still got to cut it back. We've got our fuel plate coming into the fuel filter, into the fuel pump, from the fuel pump up to the fuel rails. They run all the way up, and then they go up and over, and there's the fuel block right there. You see all the little lines coming out of it. You can see the hydraulic line coming down to the shifter. The other one comes around and up to the transmission, and then back to the hydraulic system for the brakes. That would go up to the floor, to the brake pedal. Then we just added the fittings here and there, make everything look good. There's the brake lines. It goes from hard lines from each rear diff, or each rear caliper on the diff. Soft line up to the rail. You can see where we molded in the Pro Mod suspension. We got our headers to fit. You can see the starters wired. You can see all this detail underneath, the brake lines, all the wiring. Come over to the other side, you can see the super coil, brake lines, the power steering lines, transmission lines coming down, running back, and they go into the transmission right here. And that's all using craft wire, guys. We clipped this plate off the Cutlass's frame when I broke it, and we just reapplied it where it needed to be onto this, and that gave this something to glue to, and it kind of took the front and raised it up a little bit, which lowered the front suspension, which is kind of what we were looking for. So, you know, it's a lot of work. It's been almost a year since we started this project. Definitely had trials and tribulations along the way. She sits on all fours. Now that I made the adjustment with the roll cage and all that, I shouldn't have. The only fitment issue I have is the tack, and I'm not busting it loose and moving it back. It really needs to go back towards the driver a little bit more, but it's okay. At the end of the day, it's it'll be just fine. You know, you glue it on, then you bust that off, and it just messes up the whole dash. And like I said, I got a goober on each side of the dash for the roll cage, and I don't want to add any more. The roll cage kind of covers it up pretty good, so we're okay with that. But she does it on all fours. You know, we got the MGSF valve stems on the tires. We've got the Z-Force Model Works rotors and calipers, tires and wheels. We went to a little bit smaller tire in the back, just as wide but not as tall. Same for the front. Overall look, I like it a lot better than the Tomahawks on it. It is cool seeing those big tires up underneath a Pro Touring car, but you know, these I think are 12-inch wide tires, and you know, that's a pretty tall meet. Oh, and don't forget, here in the back, we cut these frame rails out right here, all the way back. Removed them, took off all the excess material on the inside, and we screwed those frame rails in 4 scale inches on each side. So this has been narrowed 8 inches. And then we built back the material on the outside, what we needed to, and filled in for the frame rails, and got it all sanded down and painted. We modified the factory 4-link into a more aggressive 4-link. We added 3D coilovers. That is the kit's differential and cover. It's got the W27 aluminum rear end cover. Quick change. We scratch built the drive shaft The kit one would have fit right in place. Go figure that. But we scratch built it anyways to give a more of a racing look. And all that worked out good. Now it's just to finish up that exhaust, which will take me about 10 minutes. And then, and I won't do that until I marry it back to the body. And the hood pins. Show you these real quick. I was going to use the ones that Ernest made me, but with the hood not being displayed, we're going to use the Detail Masters. This is what I was going to use originally, and I have the holes drilled already in place for them. So it's just a matter of cutting the pins to the size, putting in the plates, and hooking up the wire and all that. And then, like I said, the hood will be displayed separately. So until Jay ever decides he wants to modify the hood, where you put the hood back on it, and then he can attach the hood pins then. So be like if it's at a show, and he's going to put it in a display case, and that's how it's going to be displayed. The mirrors I have in place. Like I said, we did pin those. I still got to put a little drop of glue on them underneath. That'll keep them from moving. Got our decals on there. I'm just going to add that one little Hertz decal right there. It's that little darker spot you see. And I got one to put down on the shifter. And that's really it. So those two decals, the exhaust tips, and marry it together and put the hood pins together. I am waiting on the decal for the grill. See here, I'm going to take this out and replace this piece. Cut a new one, put it in. That way that all that glue's not prominent through there. And we got our headlights in. We got our lens covers for the turn signals. And we got our license plate, so Jay can put whatever kind of tag he wants to in the front. Probably his own, I would say. And yeah, everything's, the glue's just not dry all the way in the lenses. It's what's, they got the white look to them. It will dry out clear. And I think that's it, guys. So, I mean, again, other than marrying it to the body, we'll do a photo booth set of pictures with it. And that'll just be a quick, like, 10-minute video. You guys get to enjoy it all put together and get to see it all shined up and all that good stuff. So, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears went into this. A lot of detail. I mean, legitimately, if you put the key in it and turn it, you would think that it would start. I mean, it's got that kind of detail to it. You could sit here and stare at it for probably a good hour or two. Just look at all the detail. And I do. And I'm the one that did it. And I still sit there and I'm like, wow, I pulled that off. I pulled this off. I didn't think that this would fit. You know, I never, as many problems as I was having, never imagined it actually getting finished and looking like this. You know, if I'm being totally honest. I thought for sure that it was just going to keep failing and I'd keep breaking stuff. But you know, it's to the point that mind over matter. Your perseverance. You may have to step back and make some adjustments and refigure things and go a little bit different route to achieve what you're wanting to get. And this is a standing testament to that. You can see how I had to scratch build that roll cage. It comes up, flattens out, and then comes back down. All the angles of a Cutlass, where it was designed to fit inside of a Ford. You know, it wasn't designed for a Cutlass. And, you know, front and back, it's right on the money. Other than being taken apart and put back together so many times that there's some buildup, but that will never be seen. You just will never see it. So it's, all you'll see is roll cage, and the parts and points of interest that matter is all that's visible. The little flubs here and there are not visible. The interior looks really good and clean. We do have Oldsmobile floor mats down in there. They're hard to see now that I screwed the seats up a little bit, but they are in there. So I had a lot of my own stuff: seat belts, floor mats, all the switches, all the wiring, all the plumbing. Jay provided a lot of all the A&M fittings. I provided the stainless or the steel braided lines, all the 3D printed stuff. He supplied the distributor, the pulleys, the kit. I supplied the paint. Again, it's Poppy Red MCW. Kit decals. Tires and wheels were from me. Z-Force Model Works made them. Same way with the brakes. The brakes I actually made. Those are my 3D printed brakes, but they are Ryan Jones's brakes. His design. And then everything else was all me. All completely in the design. It's just the overall look that Jay wanted. I had to keep in my mind all the time how the outcome of this was going to be. Is this really going to come together, or am I really just fighting an uphill battle? As simple as I thought it would be is a lot more difficult. It did challenge me. It challenged my skills. It challenged patience. I learned how to just put it down, walk away from it for a while, think about it, look at it, try a few things, see if that would work. And that process did work. So at the end result, we got a really good looking model. Pure Protouring. This is not an airbag driven Protouring car. This is a coilover racing suspension, front and rear. Even though it has a OEM 4-link, it's been modified to be more sensitive and functioning to the ride, but yet strong, steel bars to hold everything in place. The only thing we didn't add was a dog link. It's really not needed with this OEM style 4-link. But yeah, we got the details in there, and you can, on the brakes, you can start at the reservoirs up here and follow it all the way down to the proportioning valves, to the front wheels, from the proportioning valve back to the rear wheels, up and over top of the differential. Same way with fuel lines, you can follow them all the way up to the carburetors. Transmission lines, you can follow each and every one of them where they go. The power steering lines, they're more prominent over here on the driver's side. It's hard to see down in there, I know. You can see them going up there right in front of my finger there to the power steering pump, and then down to the rack. I took my time. Flat tweezers, regular tweezers, your friends, bending, shaping, uniforming the other one to fall in line. That was the task at hand, and it turned out pretty good, other than some little adjustments I got to make to straighten them up, but that's no big deal. So please, guys, let me know down in the comments what you think about this. Almost a year to build this. When I do a build this big, it takes quite a while, and I had to make it worthwhile to get a pristine promo of that Javelin and a couple other things that are being included to make it fair to Jay for what money part he gave up and kits he's given up to value this. If I was to value this, I'm valuing this about $1,200. That's my labor. That's not any of the kit parts or any of the parts that are into it, paint or anything like that. We're talking then in excess of about $1,400, $1,400 to $1,500, give or take. So any indication, if anybody was to ever want me to build something like this, that the time frame it takes and all the goodies it takes to make something look like this and not be store-bought and then assembled. This is me making the fuel lines, installing them, so on and so forth. You're looking between $1,200 and $1,500. And I'm still underselling myself. Because if I actually figured out labor rate and everything else, we'd be in excess of probably $2,000 or more. So you guys can understand where a lot of guys, when you contact somebody and ask them, hey, how much would you charge to build this for me? I've got this in it, this in it, this in it, and that. This is labor intensified more than anything else. Anybody can take 3D parts, 3D printed parts or resin parts, paint them up and install them. But when you go connecting all the lines and putting them in their proper place, and you're bending and you're shaping and you're keeping everything in a small, confined little space, and yet make it look clean. That's labor intensified. So let me know down in the comments what you think. Flood those comments, guys. We're like 15 away from 1,000. Let's get there. That's all I can say. Thank you to all my past, present, and future subscribers. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that bell notification. Go back and watch some of my older videos. You can watch videos on this where we've started the process and, through it. There's process on Instagram of this build. So if you've missed something and you're wanting to know how I did it, just kind of go back through there. Any questions, drop me an email. I'll be glad to explain how I did any of this. Again, get it up there close. You guys just, it's, your mind goes 1,000 different directions, but that's because there's 1,000 different things to look at. It's very busy, but yet very cool to sit there and look and see where everything goes to and how's it connected and, blah, blah, blah. So it's there. I think Jay's going to take it to a couple shows. I'm going to try to take it to a couple shows. Get a chance to come to those shows. Take a look at it. You'll see for yourself that it's crazy. I blew my own mind. So there we go. All right, guys. This is Rusty Rotor. I'm out.